and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for over 40 years, nationally and internationally as the Money Lady. And as always, I'm excited to have you watching my shows. Why? Because I'm committed to not only good information, but amazing resources and guests that can empower you to prosper in these difficult times. It's very important to me. I've done this for many, many years, and I've not changed, particularly in the days we're in today. Today, we will be interviewing Dr. Ibrahima Seck, who is the founder and the director of research for the Whitney Plantation Museum in southern Louisiana, one of the larger plantations in the United States. And he was my guest on my last show, and we ran out of time. And this man was such a fascinating and knowledgeable person that I asked him if he would consent to come on again. Dr. Ibrahima Seck hails from the country of Senegal, and he is again a phenomenal historian with regard to the American plantation and slave experience. And I want to delve more in part two today into many of the things that he talked about, and we are going to go jump in the river and here we go swimming. So without further ado, I'm going to be bringing him on via the Zoom platform, and we'll be talking back and forth, but we've got a lot of pictures of the plantation that you are going to want to see. We showed some. We're going to continue showing those pictures and having him talk about, from his background, the significance of all of the above. So, good morning, Dr. Seck.
Good morning, Michelle. How are you?
I am doing just marvelous. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right.
Are you in the United States right now?
Yes, I'm here in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And how long are you going to be here this time?
I'm here until the end of December.
Okay, and then you're heading
And
back?
early January, I will go back to Senegal to resume teaching at the University Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar, Senegal.
Ah, my good. In the history area?
Oh yeah, and only about slavery.
I find, Dr. Seck, I find
Yeah.
this so challenging that our people in Senegal do not know about the history of slavery in, as you would say in French, d'États-Unis, United States. They don't know. Is that true?
There is a lot of hidden knowledge. People know that Africans were deported and enslaved all over the country, but they don't know about the details of these people, our people, building the foundation of the economy of this country, but also defining its culture. They don't know. My book was just published, released in Senegal, about the historical and cultural links between Senegambia and the Mississippi River Valley. To tell you the truth, people are just surprised, you know.
Well, I think the
And
absence of information.
one of the things they really ignore is about the resilience of our people, and also the agency. They were not just beasts of burden. They were people with a lot of agency and maybe dominated and enslaved, but also having some control of their life, you know, resisting.
I want to go into that more. I'm going to go into that during this interview, because that experience for me, walking those grounds, took me 4 hours by myself but the resistance piece was profoundly moving for me. So I'm going to want us, as we talk, I want you to talk about that. But I just could not understand how they did not know that this happened to their people, because essentially we've been told here that our people sold us and they got good money for it, and we were never ever expected to come back, ever. So would you like to talk about that? Let's talk about that.
Of course, Africans sold Africans into slavery. It did not just happen with the Atlantic slave trade, but also the Trans-Saharan slave trade, the Indian Ocean slave trade. And for each of those slave trade involved the elite. And I think you cannot blame all Africans for what the elite did, you know. But we have also to understand how the elites were involved. It was always a strategy of divide and conquer, divide and control. When we talk about the Trans-Saharan slave trade, what happened is that the Arab, after the Muslims controlled North Africa and more Spain, that boosted the Trans-Saharan slave trade. The traders came with Islam, and some countries were, let's say, were converted to Islam, and racist theories were built around race and religion, and they eventually defined two sections of the world or Africa: Dar al-Islam, the abode of Islam, and Dar al-Harb, the abode of war. And they gave themselves the legitimacy as Muslim to enslave non-Muslim people. Yeah.
My goodness.
So we see in the Arab traders wrote many books about Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and they describe countries like Takrur, that's the kingdom of Fouta on the Senegal River. Excuse me one time, let me turn off this. Yeah. For example, we had the first empire in West Africa called Ghana, the land of gold, and also Takrur on the Senegal River, which we call Fouta Toro. Those they describe people from Ghana, Takrur, doing raids to the south, to the countries of the unbelievers. So religion was used to divide Africans too and justify the enslavement of non-Muslims. For the Atlantic slave trade, the different companies, like European companies, succeeded in getting the elite involved into the business, bringing to them new models of consumption. I think that the most important part of the trade was firearms. If you are not involved in the business, you don't get firearms. Even when you say no, they may sell it to your neighbor who was not necessarily friendly. And if you see your neighbor who's a rival getting that firepower, you would do something also to protect your throne and to protect your own kingdom. That was also a system of divide
and conquer.
Divide and conquer, and still going on.
As we speak.
yeah, the elites in Africa, uh, mostly, are linked to those Western companies. And when we say Africa is poor, that's not true. Africa is the richest land in the world.
Yep.
You know, we have everything to really make it. But unfortunately, the elites are not always uh, conducting a good policy to allow us, to get to development and solve our problems. And the people, I mean, the members of the elite who said no during the Atlantic Slave Trade, they disappeared. And even with colonization and after colonization, the leaders who stood up and said no to the exploitation of Africa, no to the involvement of European countries or former colonizing those countries like France, Britain, or Belgium. And they said no, most of them were killed or exiled. Maybe the first case and the most heartbreaking case was the case of Lumumba in the country of Zaire. He was dismembered and his body melted into some kind of acid because he just said no.
Is this Lumumba you're speaking of?
Yeah, Lumumba, Patrice
Yes,
Lumumba.
Yeah.
The other case is Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso. He was also killed, assassinated.
Now
And
you
they-
know my outreach is in Burkina Faso. I've been involved with Burkina Faso with the shea butter since 2005. It's a tragic story. It is a tragic story.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Burkina Faso, many countries in West Africa are not in peace. Uh, they have a way also to destabilize your country. And what they did recently is the destruction of Libya. Muammar al-Qaddafi said no. He wanted to create a currency for all Africa, and they could not let that go, let that happen. They killed him, destroyed his country, and all the weapons that were in Libya now are down in West Africa, and also the jihadists took this opportunity to get down to West Africa to try to control also the riches. It has nothing to do with religion. You see?
So my question would be, because we're looking at what's happening in Niger, and I've heard both sides. But I'm also watching the European response to Niger, and I'm also looking at the BRIC coming together with the unification of resources and currency against the U.S. dollar. These are major restitution pieces in motion right now, Dr. Seck. They're happening right now.
Yes, it is happening. And
Yeah.
I think I answered your question about, Africans sold Africans. I'm
Right.
not, among those people who say, no, that these were white people just came into the country and kidnapped people. No, it didn't happen like that. That business was in the hand of the elite, I think I explained to you how these elites were involved,
Right.
And if people say they got good money from it, it is not true. It is not true. Maybe they got some good quality iron or firearms, but no, it is mostly about trinkets.
Right.
Yeah, it's mostly about trinket
For the elite.
for the elite. And of course, the promotion of tobacco consumption and alcohol.
Yeah. Yep.
And
So
alcohol
moving,
played a very important role too in that trade.
horrible, horrible. That's so going back to the Whitney plantation, and when I was there, there was a wall. That was a German owned plantation historically, correct?
Yes, the plantation was founded by German immigrants who was among 7,000 other Germans who were brought into the country by the French Company of the West Indies. So for those who know the Mississippi River, the Germans were mostly settled along the river from the outpost of New Orleans to halfway to Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Ambrose Heidel was his name, and that was an indigo and rice plantation, among other things. But the most important commodity that were produced there were rice and indigo. Those were the cash crop of the 18th century. And in the 19th century, the people of course, lower Louisiana shifted to sugarcane.
And why?
And sugar, indigo, or the indigo from Louisiana was destroyed by some kind of worms. That happened in the 1790s, and also the Louisiana indigo was not of the best quality. So they had to face a lot of competition from other countries, from South America, for example, indigo from India. And in the 1790s, I think we talked about this the last time we met, we have the Haitian Revolution. The people of Saint-Domingue, people enslaved in Saint-Domingue, rose up in the 1791 and said no to slavery, and they ended beating all those Western countries that were trying to control, Saint-Domingue, that became Haiti, independent
Yes.
Haiti, 1804. They beat the troops of Napoleon
Yes.
and created a free country. And Haiti provided 2/3 of the sugar consumed in the world.
Oh
So
my
after,
God.
yeah, so after, so the fall of Saint Domingue and the rise of Haiti, that sugar was lost to the Western, to the world market. And South Louisiana it is hot, it is humid, so this was an opportunity for them to get involved in the sugar business. And they had also the opportunity to get some know-how that came from Haitian refugees in Louisiana,
Oh,
planters who fled Haiti with the enslaved people and free people of color. So the land was available, and this happened after the Louisiana Purchase. Land was plenty and available, and also the climate uh, was like just perfect for it. And then they got the knowledge. The people were qualified for planted. Sugarcane was planted in Louisiana very early, in the 1750s, but they were never able to produce it at an industrial level. And it was only with the arrival of the Haitian that they were able to develop sugarcane cultivation and processing it into sugar.
so it was the determination based upon the soil and the climate conditions that were
Uh-huh.
conducive for sugar,
Yeah.
the plant. But the plant came to Louisiana from Haiti. From
The plant itself was brought, yes, from Haiti to Louisiana by the Jesuits.
the Jesuits.
Yeah, the Jesuits.
Oh man.
They were never able to, I mean, produce it and process it at an industrial level. In the 1750s, there was another very rich planter from France. His name was Joseph Dubreuil. He tried to, but he did not really succeed. He got wealthy with indigo, but he was never able to produce sugar at an industrial level. And it was only in 1795, for the first time, a planter who goes by the name of Etienne de Boré, who owned a plantation that is now in the heart of New Orleans, he was able to produce sugar at an industrial level, 12,000 pounds of sugar, and he is a sugar master. The person who ran his mill, his sugar mill, was a free man of color, a free black from Haiti. His name was Antoine Morin. Yeah.
So that's an interesting story because I had no idea. In fact, truthfully, I had never seen a sugar cane stalk until I was at the Whitney plantation. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of them.
Yeah. Now to complete my answer to your question, the founder was a German from Louisiana. He was a German, and the Heidels, the plantation was called Habitation Heidel or the Heidel Plantation, until the end of the Civil War. The last Heidel who owned it died, and she was a lady. She didn't have any children, and her husband had died. So her relatives sold the plantation to a businessman based in New York, Bradis Johnson, and he's the one who changed the name from Heidel to Whitney.
Okay.
Whitney Plantation is a name that started only in 1867. Before that, it was a Heidel Plantation, Haydel.
Okay.
Yeah.
German.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it. So it went to this gentleman bought it, and what did he do once he acquired the land?
No, it remained a sugar plantation. The sugar was sold north and probably to Europe, but also they had molasses that were shipped to New York to make rum.
Now that is a money maker there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, alcohol is always going to be a money maker. I didn't even think of the connection between the sugar in Louisiana and exporting it to New York for the production of rum.
Yeah, the molasses.
Yes, the molasses. So that plantation had to have been very profitable.
Yeah, very profitable, and the ownership shifted to other hands too after Bradis Johnson. In 1880, the plantation was bought by two gentlemen from Louisiana. One called Saint Martin and the other one Théophile Perret. And later, he fell under the control of a chemical company from Taiwan, the Formosa Chemical Company. And they wanted to turn it into a chemical plant.
Yes.
So people protested because most of the plantation have been bought by companies, big companies, and most of them involved in the petrochemical business and other kind of chemical companies. So the area where those plantations were now is called Cancer Alley.
Oh my gosh.
Because of the many chemicals around them, and who's suffering from those chemical companies? Mostly black people who live in small communities along the river.
Now, are those people that live close to that facility? Are they the children of slaves from that area?
Absolutely, they were the descendants of
Yes.
the people who lived along that river.
So how do
You know,
they make how do they make a living?
uh, some people work at those plants, chemical plants. Some people, uh, to tell you the truth, there is a lot of unemployment over there and poverty.
Very high unemployment.
Yeah, very high unemployment. And most of them are black, and it's just heartbreaking.
Well,
And,
I'm trying to get clarity because my background is in world economics, and I'm trying to understand if the Whitney plantation started out primarily doing sugar cane production and refining and used free labor in the form of slaves to do this, then why aren't they still doing this? Hello?
Sorry.
Okay. Why aren't they still doing this, Dr. Seck? It was profitable. Rum is still being consumed. Sugar, and we all know sugar is horrible for health reasons, but the reality is a business proposition. Why would why would those people be working for chemical companies when they could be growing their own crops?
Where they gonna grow those crops? Who control the land?
Ah,
They, they
okay.
don't control the land.
The land is controlled by those companies.
Oh yeah. So very few families really own land over there. They may own a little house, but most of it was is under the control of big companies. And Whitney Plantation is in one portion of the river that was spared by those chemical companies. Formosa finally sold the land to John Cummings, who is the founder of the Whitney Plantation Museum. And recently now, people are struggling because there is a company called Greenfield that is trying to build a grain elevator just near between Whitney and a little town called Wallace.
Right.
That's something maybe as high or higher than the Statue of Liberty. And a grain elevator is also will bring a lot of pollution and pests.
Bugs from the
With
grain.
particles that will stick to your,
Yeah.
to our, to lungs and and make like and provoke lung disease and things like that. The
So,
fight is.
so the chemical companies are running it right now. Is that correct?
Running what?
The chemical companies are essentially the owners of the land there right now, with the exception
Yeah,
of Whitney.
yeah. Mostly chemical companies on both sides of the river. Huh?
And the people that are descendants of these slaves are now slaves to the chemical companies.
Yeah, some of them work for the chemical companies, some work elsewhere.
But poverty is real right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You just drive along that river, you'll notice it. You'll notice it.
So why, when given the opportunity, I'm just trying to get understanding, why didn't they leave? Because in parts of the Midwest, Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia, they migrated north. They didn't stay down there.
Yeah, not everybody left. Some people migrated. Like
Right.
after the Civil War, about 17% of the population in the parish where we are, St. John the Baptist Parish, About 17% of them moved to New Orleans. The people went elsewhere. But the majority of people didn't leave. They stayed on the plantation. You have nowhere to go.
I
They
understand.
stayed on the plantation, like on the Whitney plantation. People lived in those slave cabins until 1975, when the
My
plantation, yeah,
words.
yeah, when that was the time when all the workforce over there left, and the people who ran it also left, and the land was leased to sugarcane growers. Yeah, and until today, among we have some people come to visit, and they said we lived in that cabin over there. Some of the people are still living, and the
Oh,
children are there, grandchildren are there, you know, just staying around, and like many neighborhood in New Orleans, they have a serious problem with drug, just communities, and the death rate is high. Yeah.
I had heard that about New Orleans, that underneath all of the partying and the alcohol and everything, it's an extremely depressed community.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
after Katrina, it only got worse.
Yeah. For sure it get worse, The people who have the power of money are involved into gentrification. Whenever there's a disaster, it's an opportunity open to them to control the land. Many people after Katrina were not able to rebuild, and they had to leave.
Right.
And black neighborhoods are being affected by gentrification. And if people have to move, they move with the culture too. After Katrina, the town of the city of New Orleans, they made, and those who who are in the entertainment industry, they put a lot of money out and build some housing. The first priority was the musicians. They built a musicians village because that tourist industry need the musicians around.
Right.
Yeah, but for the poor and powerless, they just many people moved out of town.
It's a very, very sorrowful story.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to go deeper with you on this second part. The people,
Okay.
the people that were initially enslaved on that plantation had skills. The Germans didn't just have anybody coming over to that plantation because it was not cultivated, is my understanding. Trees, it was all this land, and nothing had been done. And these people came over here with nothing except their skills. Is that a correct understanding?
What are you talking about now?
I'm saying with the Whitney plantation, from its inception, we know the story of how Caucasians weren't able to cultivate that area. And
Oh
there,
yeah.
go on.
Uh, the early history of colonial Louisiana is really interesting because uh, many people died of starvation in Louisiana.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm talking about the European, the French.
Yeah.
Some people were, the information went back home about the Mississippi River, about the colony, where people were dying of disease, people dying because Native Americans fought back to keep their land, people dying of starvation because they came into the wilderness of Louisiana and they knew nothing about the development of that kind of land. And the solution came from Africa, from Africans. Most of them during the French regime came during the 1720s, and most of them were rice growers who were carefully selected from the African coast. The instructions were clear. Go to West Africa, to those rice-growing countries, buy people who can grow rice, and also barrels of rice destined to be planted here in Louisiana. They saved the colony from starvation, and they made the colonization of Louisiana possible. So, and beyond that, like I said, also they contributed tremendously to the making of the culture.
So we have in Louisiana, and listeners and viewers, be patient because this is very important information. Louisiana is a state, but prior to statehood, it was French.
Yeah, it was French and then Spanish, and
Yeah.
that's what we call Greater Louisiana, from the Illinois country all the way down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. So it was after the Louisiana Purchase that the country was divided in different territories. And Louisiana, what we call today the state of Louisiana, was access to statehood in 1812.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prior
So-
to 1812, it was predominantly French and Spanish.
Yeah, that's colonial Louisiana. Before the Louisiana Purchase, the
Right.
French had control of it from 1699 to 1766. And then from 1766 to 1803, the colony of Louisiana was under the control of the Spanish. Then Napoleon took it back from the Spanish and just to sell it to Thomas Jefferson.
This,
So that's the Louisiana Purchase, yeah.
yes, which was a large purchase.
Yeah.
But there were slaves who were under the French authority.
Yeah, enslaved people were brought from Africa to Louisiana by the French,
Yeah.
and the Spanish also brought many Africans here. And under American rule, in 1807, the Congress voted a law against importing enslaved Africans from the Caribbean. They had to be born here. And that's when the East Coast of the United States became the provider of slave labor to the Mississippi River.
Okay.
So people were bought on the East Coast, Virginia, Maryland, Kentucky, Carolina, and then some of them were taken on boats to the port of New Orleans, but most of them will walk from there, from the East Coast, to the Mississippi River.
To provide labor for
Yeah.
this expanding state. Is that
And of course, during the American rule, although the Atlantic slave trade was abolished, there was a lot of smuggling.
I
into
just
Louis-
found it fascinating that the land grab was by the Germans.
That's on a
That-
portion only of the Mississippi River. It is called the German coast.
The German coast.
The German coast, and it is a portion of the land around the on both sides of the river,
Yes.
from the outskirts of New Orleans to halfway to Baton Rouge. And until today, it's called the German coast, and composed of two parishes, St. John the Baptist Parish, where we are, and St. Charles Parish. They have a German lake over there. They have also a city called Des Allemands. Allemand is German in French.
Ah,
Yeah.
understand. So with that in mind, they identified, because when I looked at that board of all the names, they had recorded all the names of those slaves, the Wall of Honor, and the country of origin, and their skills, if I'm not mistaken, on that
Yeah. Mhm.
that
The
wall.
wall of honor carries the names of the people who were enslaved on the plantation. Uh, and the archives, the archives about slavery in Louisiana are really rich with information. For those who came from Africa, they also mentioned the nation
Right, I found that
in the
very
inventory.
interesting.
Like someone would be described as a Samba, uh, a, like a herdsman, who knows something about cattle raising. The skills, or they mention all the skills, and also
Yes,
any kind of disease, they would mention it. And yeah, that's the way it was.
I just had no idea.
Mhm.
And I am a researcher as well of slavery. No longer. It was so, Dr. Seck, I was pursuing my PhD on the economics of slavery, and the research the research was so disturbing that I couldn't complete my dissertation. It was too much. I did not know. This is new information for me because I did not know that Louisiana had all of this land that was controlled by the Germans. You would have thought the French would have kept the land because it did provide economic resources. People, I mean, you could plant rice, you could plant sugarcane, and you had your slaves, and you could become very wealthy.
Mhm.
Was that in fact what happened?
Uh, Absolutely. But let me tell you that the Germans were brought in Louisiana by the French.
The French brought the Germans,
Yeah, the French company of the West Indies
brought,
was having a hard time getting volunteers from France
ah,
because of the bad news that reached the country from the Mississippi River. Even the King of France decided to deport the poor and powerless using a special police. It did not work. The company went also to do a lot of publicity in the German territories, and at least 7,000 people uh, were transported to Louisiana.
oh my, to do
Yeah,
what?
and
To,
they were granted land.
okay, oh, they were given land.
Yeah, they were given land,
Okay, so the
and
incentive,
then
okay,
yeah,
okay.
and at the same time, they were able to own enslaved people from Africa.
Now,
Yeah.
who facilitated the ownership, the purchase of these people with these specific skills? That requires money.
Hmm.
Where did the money come from?
The people, I mean, the French company or the West Indies also brought, I said, they brought the Africans in their boats. It was well organized. And
Huh.
even if you don't have money, you can get a slave force, enslaved people. They produce the wealth. They produce like, let's say, indigo or
Right,
rice,
right.
and then you pay the company.
Ah,
Hmm.
until you were out of debt with the company.
Yes.
So the company subsidized the land
Mm-hmm.
and the labor,
Yes.
and they got a percent of the profits from these various agricultural endeavors. Is that what happened?
Now, when they make the crop, you sell your crops. The money belongs to you. And
Okay,
if you have some debt, you pay the company
got
because
it.
the land was free, but the Africans, the people who did the job, that wasn't free. You have to pay for them. And later, people were also able to get money from the banks.
Yes,
They borrowed money from the banks. Some banks were created, like the Consolidated Association of Louisiana Planters. It was a bank, and they provided money for the planters who wanted to buy people, enslaved people, or who wanted to, uh, let's say, to take care of the harvesting and the processing of the
right.
sugar. That needed money too.
They needed
So,
working capital. They were the banks were doing what banks do today. They were
yeah, absolutely.
lending, but the thing that I find troubling about this whole account, and it's not unique in as much as the French, after Burkina Faso, that I have nothing to do with the French. The French, Dr. Seck, have a history. They have, I can't believe they had the French Revolution to overthrow the rich, and then they became as bad as the rich.
Absolutely. That's
I mean, they just strip and strip and strip today. I just, it's just very interesting how they were able to do that. So what happened, because I looked at the wall, I saw the skills, that was new. I had somehow thought that the majority of people that came over here did not have skills, that were slaves. And the Germans kept tight accounting, and they listed all their skills.
they had skills. Like I said, many were rice growers, cattle raiders, and most of them were Fulbe or Fulani people. And they were listed on the plantation as African of the Pular nation. Pular is the language they speak, and many other skills. You
Yes.
know, the people came here with skills in even building houses. Those houses that were built, built by the Africans. They had some African influences too. Even the
Right.
big,
Right.
uh,
Right.
and also a kind of architecture called the shotgun house. The shotgun house.
And what is that type of architecture? What is that?
The shotgun house is all over the U.S. South. So it is a kind of architecture where you have many row of rooms, and a front porch, a back porch, and if you open the doors are on the same, usually on the same side. You have a corridor, and when you open all the doors, the wind flows from the front porch to the back porch, or from the back porch to the front porch, and you can shoot through it like a shotgun. That's why they call it the shotgun house.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
is that unique to Africa? Is that an
Uh, the
architectural
shotgun
style?
house for sure came from Africa, and here it was, that kind of architecture, was reproduced here, and it has a long, very strong ties with the blues culture. You know, they say the blues and the shotgun house; those things go together.
That is so fascinating.
With the food, yeah.
I just got a prompt from my director that our time is run out again.
Again,
And I have not been able to show the pictures that I wanted to show, but I have certainly benefited from your knowledge and your insight about this entire history of what took place there which was information that I did not know, Dr. Seck. I did not know. But it's just ironic to me that the same people that were doing business back then, 300 years ago, are still in bed together. The French are still doing what they do. The Germans are still doing what they do. The Spanish are still doing what they do. I don't know anything about the Portuguese in North America, but it seems to me that this long history is not going to have a good ending. What are your thoughts in the concluding time we have?
You see now, some country like France never left Africa. Maybe they managed to have some elites to run the country, but most of the economy is still under the control of the French. And our money is coined. Our money is made in France.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. But new generations are rising, and you see now many of the boat people are from Africa. People even get on some kind of boats. I mean, I would call them just pirogues. They try to reach the shores of Europe. Many die at sea. 1 out of 6 dies at sea. And people now are rising all over. You see what happened to Mali,
yes,
Burkina Faso, now Niger,
yes,
and I think the French and the European countries, all the Western countries, need to really change the way they interact with Africa.
They will not.
Yeah,
They're not going to have a choice. The resources are
I
there.
guess so. I guess so.
No, they will have. Well, Dr. Seck, I want to thank you again for your time and for your knowledge and for your information. And this story is not over. These two interviews were just, in my opinion, the beginning of a real serious dialogue regarding the African in the United States, and that are the part of the diaspora, which are the slave ships that transported our people. I cannot thank you. I cannot thank you enough.
Can I say something?
Yes.
What you should do is to get to the Whitney plantation with your crew, and we walk the land. So I will be better able to elaborate on different aspects of slavery. We'll see all the memorials we built over there, the historic buildings. I think it would be great to have a video in context, in situ, right there at the Whitney plantation.
I think
maybe
you're right.
Not now, maybe later, 2 years from now.
Oh no!
From now,
I'll be back. I will be
Yeah.
back. I took pictures, but the next time I'm going to bring a camera crew with your consent.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that trip to Louisiana and see the things you talked about and experience again. I thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
And for
thank you
those
so
of
much.
you that are viewers, I thank you for listening into today's segment of The Power of Money with part 2 of my interview with Dr. Ibrahima Seck, who is the Director of Research and the co-founder of the Whitney Plantation Museum in Wallace, Louisiana. God bless
Thank
you all, and may you grow with the information you have. You
Thank
take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.